this meeting to order. Thank you all for the community and the rec board for meeting with us, and the Board of Commissioners. Thank you very much. I'm Tyler Minton. I'm the rec board advisory chairman. We'll start this, call this meeting to order. I'll get Mr. Brian Clayton to give us our invocation today.
Bow your heads. Heavenly Father God, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to come together to discuss matters for the rec department as a community. We ask that you lead, guide, and direct us the way that you have us go. We praise you and thank you for your precious name in the road, Lord. Amen. All right, now we'll do the roll call. Ms. Kay Reese.
Here.
David Pickens. Here. Ad Williams.
Here.
Alvin's here. Don Enos.
Here.
Chad Goss is not here. Brad Lowry. Here, sir. Kyle Harrison. Here. And we're missing Jess Walker. Brad. Now we'll move to old business. Old business. No old business. I guess the only old business that I had was just one thing that I had brought up, and due to my not following Robert's Rules of Order, I made the mistake and made a motion to split into subcommittees to attack all-star selection and also what we were going to do with the SPLOST meeting, or the SPLOST monies, until we got the commissioners involved. So I will rescind that. It was accepted to split into them, but I would like to rescind that because we've also got more hands involved now. So that's the only old business that I have.
So moving along the agenda, Chris, I put y'all stuff last because I didn't think you were going to be here.
I didn't think I'd make it on time.
So you want to pull your stuff up first, and then we'll do my stuff last.
We're fine with we're fine to sit and participate.
All right. So with football, just so y'all know, we've got 6 football or youth football tackle teams. We have 2 flag football teams. We started playing games 3 weeks ago.
August 19th.
Yeah, almost a month.
We started.
Week double zero. So we hosted that week, week 00. We hosted 8 games that day. We hosted all the K1 teams and then all the flag teams that day. It was 8 games, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it was a lot. So moving forward, we'll be hosting this weekend for 6 games. The 23rd we'll be hosting, I think it's 6 or 5 games. And then we'll finish up with September 30th, and our last host date is 10/14. Football it's growing, especially with the addition of a middle school flag football team this year, and they're very, very green. It's going to take them probably a year or so to figure out the logistics of flag, whereas elementary school, they had last year's season and team under their belt, and they're probably the best team in the elementary school league. They have not lost a game yet. So I can see that continue to grow. Does anybody have any questions about football? Now we got a couple of coaches here on the board. Y'all have anything? Y'all seen anything?
No, and Kyle may second this. Moving into the off season, I know we spent a lot of time this off season. It's the most I've spent in 6 years in the program. I do think that there's an opportunity for off-season coaching clinics and things like that. I know Seth, well, the 3 of us went, we talked to Kyle on the way over there, and I think that that's something that we're going to look at. Maybe even finding a different clinic and stuff just to help bring the elementary programs up to where it's a little better. I know we've started trying to unify the programs across. We've got a good start with our kindergarten. You guys really established and had success, and you guys were really open and adopted some of those things. But in talking to Colby too, and the programs moving forward, I think that we're headed in the right direction as far as everybody getting on the same page up until the high school level. And the high school's really Myers and them have helped in coming in and doing a few things, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for some all-season stuff if we schedule it correctly to help bring the programs up, because we still have a couple teams that are really struggling from a fundamental standpoint. So that's what we need to get them into middle school, as understanding what to do, where your hands go, how to tackle, and then we'll let the success come at the high school level.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. The only issue I've had football-wise this whole season, we went to White County last weekend. I don't know who's in charge of the water buckets. They need a sound thrashing. Pretty hot. And so I don't know what we need to do. I know we've got some water jugs, and if we need to start carrying our own, that's fine. Or if, you guys don't mind calling and saying, hey, look, we ran into this last time. Make sure. I did have one boy that he got to him, and water was in the jug. There's no ice in it. It's 957 degrees outside. That's all the issue.
I noticed that we didn't have any shade on our sideline either.
No shade, any of that, and moving forward, I know we're hosting this weekend. I know last season we set the tents up, we had the fan up and all that. I think that's good to be a gracious host, do those kinds of things, because I was pretty aggravated up there in White County over that last weekend. So it felt good to be there.
Anything else?
Well, I wish we could have beaten White County, but I will second that. It is nice to have good facilities run by good people. I will say playing here makes a difference, not just playing on our home court, but also the facilities that we have, the people that take care of us. So we don't have to use our own parents or children to run the chains. So there's a lot of other people. But football's going well. As well as to be expected. We'll be all right. Fundamentals.
Fundamentals, that's what it's all about.
That goes back in what you were saying, any kind of off-season stuff like that, I agree with. It's something we can schedule. Just the way football is run, it's not like any other sport we run here. Coaches are moving up with the boys and those developmental things. Anything we can schedule like that as a group and help, build that culture. That was the thing we talked about after last season, was the culture. Anything we can do like that, get the coaches together on the same, everybody's on the same page, I think that would do well.
Anybody else have any questions about football? All right, so moving on down the agenda, basketball update. So we started registration on September the 5th. We're going to run that through October the 12th. We will then have a late registration period from October 13th to October the 15th. Skills evaluation will be the 23rd, the 24th, and the 25th. Opening day of basketball season will be December the 2nd. New for 2023, I've been working with the head coaches of the junior high, Coach Steinhauer, and with Coach Thomas and Coach Shaw. And Brett Board knows, not as much as the public, but trying to make an 11, 12 girls league has been challenging for years. 7, 8 boys, fine. 7, 8 girls is fine. 9, 10 boys is fine. 9, 10 girls starts dropping off at that point. To try to foster the game, to try to get the ball in the hands of the girls as much as possible. We're going to try a pilot program this year. With the blessings of the high school coaches and the junior high coach, we're going to try 3-on-3. It's a totally new venture. Hopefully by doing 3-on-3, we will not be relying on Gilmer County anymore, which is awesome because I've told y'all before, we can schedule Gilmer County and we can go up there, but they will refuse to come down here, even though they'll schedule us. And that's kind of a waste of Saturday if we've got a game scheduled and go up there and there's nobody there to play. So we're going to try the 3v3. We've got, and it's going to be a moving target, folks. It truly is. Between refereeing it, and Jess has actually had some good ideas. I sent him the rules. Between doing the scorekeeping for it, just a little bit of everything. It's going to be. We're going to crawl this season just to try to figure out. But I think it opens it up more because then you're not worried about having to field a 5-on-5 team. And with 3-on-3, the ball should be constantly moving. And more girls will get a chance to not only dribble the ball, but also to shoot the ball. I'm hoping this takes off and that we can start growing, because that's the real drop off from the rec leagues to the junior high is the 11 and 12 girls league. And, you know, we've tried to find the magic bullet for years. We thought it was, you know, working with Gilmer County, and that's not been the case. So we want to get a lot of girls participating, make it fun for them, and hopefully the 3-on-3 can help us with that venture. Does anybody got any questions about 3v3?
The only question I have, we would be the only county
Correct.
doing that.
Yeah.
And so I don't disagree with doing it at all, so don't take it that way. The only thing I'm curious about is, and I know where we stand with all-stars and stuff like that, but we would, I mean, it'd be nice to have a team in the tournament, in the MAC tournament. Is there a way out of that depending on how many girls sign up, out of that 3v3, you know?
Depending on how All-Stars is structured, whoever wins the 3v3 league will have a choice to take a team to put in the MAC tournament. I mean, I think that's more than doable.
That was all I was curious about.
Last thing, and Tyler mentioned it briefly, we had gotten to a discussion about bringing All-Stars back and how best to bring that back. When I was hired in 2013, I believe at the time, basically everybody put a player on the All-Star team, and then we started working that down to where 8 players were selected by the league coaches, and the head coach got to select the last two at-large picks for a team of 10. That was good and that was bad. There was politics involved in some of it. There was coaches who had access to grind in others. But, you know, if the rec board, and I know Chris has mentioned to me before, if the rec board is wanting to bring All-Stars back, we're looking for some help and some guidance on how to best to do that. Because like I said, we've probably tried 3 permeations of it, and you're still going to have the jaded parent whose kid didn't make it, having 10 strangers on the team who've never played before. And it's kind of a mixture of everything. So, you know, I'll take any recommendations from the board on, and I'll answer any questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
What's the gap between the last game for the rec department and the tournament?
You get about 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks. Now, one year we did it, and we selected the team in December. And then that coach started practicing, basically nothing to do with his rec team, was practicing January, and rec season was over with, so they had some practices under their belt before they went to the tournament.
Yeah, and I guess it's very similar. You know, we kind of done the coach's contract that we began with as far as behavioral and things like that. That's a lot of what we run into as far as rec department that I see that's a glaring problem. Maybe we draft up a contract, everybody reviews it, and then give it to them, and then let a committee of some kind pick those coaches, because there's not a limit on the coaches, right? I mean, you need 3.
You need 3. 3 is like the magic number for.
It's the guy who wins the rec department tournament may not be the guy that we want to
That's
represent
correct.
Pickens County at somewhere else, because his daughter's better than everybody else.
And we faced that issue in the past. He had the best players. He may not have been the best coach. And they went, and he was just completely out of his element, didn't know what was going on. But he had coaches who were on his team to actually help him coach, but when it got time to play games, they kind of just sat on their hands and he didn't help them, which was kind of unfortunate. So he had some talented athletes on that team.
As long as all the people who sign up are, you know, accepting of it and sign it and say, you know, this is All-Stars, it should be just that, and everybody needs to understand that, including children. You know, the best are going to go if you want to do the best work.
So what would the board, what function would the board, so let's start from the beginning. Do y'all as a board recommend whoever wins the league gets first right of refusal? Or do we leave it up to a committee to select the coach? I can see it going both ways. I've seen it go both ways.
I thought we were going to let the officials pick the coach.
He's not wrong, other than, high school kids are here officiating. He's not totally wrong. I mean,
They might be the best judge.
and I'm not opposed. I mean, if I need to come out and watch 3 or 4 ball games to help, I don't mind evaluating people. It's not.
You'll be shocked how some coaches don't even scout the other teams. Like like in the past when we sit in those all-star meetings and they're like, all right, number 12, like, who's number 12? Like, their point guard. I've never even watched them play. I'm like, they're literally like one of the best kids in the league, but there's this, sometimes, you gotta remember, we're dealing with volunteer coaches who may not know anything about basketball. And we're asking them to make an educated decision based on what they see at games, and they may honestly not pay attention. But normally, collectively, the league can come up with at least who the best 8 to 10 boys and girls are part of the league.
We don't keep books, and I'm just purely thinking for basketball because that's next on our list, or next thing up. We don't keep books as far as.
We keep points.
We keep scored points.
Yeah, we keep points. We keep points and fouls.
That matters in 12 and under anything.
It does.
So that would help as far as evaluation goes, but I guess it's something to think about as far as maybe, I'm not, it's not saying we have scouts sitting up in the stands, but officials should tell you a lot about coaches.
The more that you can take it out of, because I've been threatened on my job before over an all-star pick. And I didn't have anything to do with the actual team. I was just the administrator.
Yeah.
So anything that y'all can do to help, I mean, in a perfect world, the league selects 9, the head coach gets to get $100. That's it. That's your team. Go with it. If we start going 7-3, well, now I know little Sally's sister is going to bring snacks, and I need to get her on the team and start letting it open to politics and everything else.
I like what you're saying about the book and the stats don't lie.
You're right.
I think that would be the number one basis for it. But here's if we do that, the book has got to be more than just points scored.
That's tough, though.
Yeah, exactly.
It's me. I know just from doing junior high games, it's hard to keep up with anything except fouls and points because it's tough.
I had a hard time when I kept looking at your last season. I mean, it's
Well,
tough.
I mean, 90% of the time, your guards are going to score most of the points. So then if you get a team with 10 guards,
Unless you have someone down there that's a foot taller than everybody else.
That's the rub. And that kid may not be any good, but he's tall.
Yeah, but that killed me. We did basketball all-stars when we won it one year, like 7 and 8 boys team. We won it, and we picked 7 point guards. We got win.
Yeah.
It was terrible. So I guess that would be my thing is if we could break it down and almost like we're doing with football with a depth chart. Maybe have the coaches go out a depth chart. This kid plays center, he's got a point guard, what have you, and then we can look at stats based on position.
Why not let the coaches submit, take 3 names, 3 or 4 names, and have an evaluation of that small group to form your
That's
offense?
not bad.
Well,
Every
not only
coach-
that, we're videoing in the gyms anyway.
Every
right?
coach selects 3 players to come and try out for
Yeah.
All-Stars.
And that way you have an evaluation, you have tryouts.
Who's coaching it? That's honestly probably the most important thing. I like that though, because then that way you're bringing, hopefully, your 3 best players off your team. But who's coaching it?
What about
We've
going
done
from the year before?
it, giving the coach from the year before the right of refusal, or they have to coach it.
I think that the coaches should.
That kid could move up and
So we have to start somewhere though, because
Exactly.
like at 7-8s, our group moved up, so there's nobody that was from 7-8s going to be down there next
So
year.
we know who's coaching up front because they have to do background checks and all that other
Correct.
stuff. They need to either make a commitment, throw their name in the hat or not, and then they can be evaluated. Again, not to beat a dead horse, but officials can help you determine who is a better coach. Maybe not all the way down, 7, 8 is kind of fuzzy, but 9, 10, 11, 12, you got good coach kids, bad coach kids. It's just, if you got a kid who's fouling out.
In a perfect world, they would all get together and we would send the best. Like, they'd be like, hey, Steve, you need to be the all-star coach.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to help you, but I don't want to take that responsibility. That doesn't happen though. So
But they need to make that decision up front, I think, when they sign up for it, because it's no different than us.
So
We
what-
sign up for the postseason.
So
We
what
know-
what
we
happens
know.
is when I say, hey, who's all interested in all-stars? And I get like 8 hands raised. And I'm like,
How many teams you gonna have in each league?
so in 7, 8s, we typically have 6 to 8, 9, 10s, about 6 to 8, 11, 12s, maybe 4 to 5. And then 11, 12 girls will have maybe 20 girls total. Yeah. And something else I need to tell y'all is that we may not have anybody who wants to take the team. Y'all, that is a real fact. Especially like in the older age groups, 11, 12 girls, it could have been just an absolute terrible year and nobody wants to take that responsibility on. So, we can say we're bringing all-stars back, but there truly might not be anybody in that age group who wants to take a team.
What if you ask the coaches in the younger age group? I know they want to know every with the girls, but just all.
It's a real thing. You may have 6 really good coaches in the age group underneath and not so good coaches in the other one. So if they're willing to make a commitment up front, that they're open to going to the state tournament or the MAC tournament or whatever it is.
So basically, once you sign on to be an all-star coach, all right, at minimum, you're going to do MAC tournament and you're going to do GRPA all-stars, all right? Depending on how you finish in GRPA, if you win the district, right now our district is us and Gilmer and Fannin, then you're going to South Georgia. And that is, if you say, well, all we want to do is, MAC and district, if you win district, you're still on the hook to go, and you have to pay forfeit fees if you don't go. So really, you're on the hook for 3 tournaments, one at the southern tip of Georgia.
I said it helps just knowing, and I can go off wrestling because we wrestle with Team Georgia. I signed my kid up to a qualifier that's in Carrollton. We know that we're taking these kids, and we know that if they win, we've got to go wherever the state tournament is that year. And I think one time in 5 years we've been north of Atlanta. The rest of the time it's Warner Robins, Macon, wherever. Perry, we've been to Perry a couple different times. But I think if they know that up front, because we're doing it in the wrestling program too. There's a coach's contract that if we sign up to coach, you're going to be at these tournaments. This is the list. This is what we're doing. If these kids go to state, whether your kid qualifies or not, you still have to go to the tournament. Now, a lot of that, the travel expenses and stuff are paid as far as hotel and stuff like that. But again, I think that up front would be the best way to be with it, because you might have some guys or some girls that are like, we want to do this. We want to take this team to whatever, and then.
So what if we're in that room, what if I have 3 coaches who want to coach the all-star team and nobody wants to be the head? We got to have some type of mechanism that if you win the league or if you do this or if you do that, then you're going to be appointed or you're going to have first right of refusal to coach all-stars.
So you can do the first right of refusal and then have an alternate. That's no different than anything else that, again, not to go back to wrestling, but there's when we go to qualifiers, there's always an alternate. The 5th place guy is the alternate to get in if we're over the 16-man bracket. And I don't know how you defaulted after that, so I'm drawing a blank.
Can we not give them like an incentive? Let's say you do win that thing, and you do go to, where is it, South Georgia, Thomasville, Charlton County, where that far south?
It just depends.
Can you not throw the carrot of we'll pay for your hotel room while you're down there?
That would have to be budgeted. we'll pay for your entry fees. We've never, as far as I know, you were here before I was, we've never actually paid for hotels and stuff like that. That's beyond the scope.
Well, I'm just saying for the head coach.
To go off what Adam says, if I took one of our biggest basketball days, we did a cash raffle. You know, this, and this. I don't mind sitting out there. We did it for football when we went to the NFL Red Zone. We went to the cheerleading tournament, did a cash raffle. You know, got up to whoever it was won $500, and then we had all the extra money to pay for the kids' hoodies and travel expenses.
But that would be something that the coach and the team would have to do. It wouldn't be a
Good
rec
separate
department.
from away.
It wouldn't be a rec department function because.
Well, yeah, and that's what, yeah,
We would have
I'm
our
saying
hands on
that. I mean, I volunteered my time to sit here and do that, even because I'm not affiliated, I don't work for the county.
And
But I
normally,
can sit out here all day on a Saturday as long as it's not football season.
normally, people in the community pay for like the food and the drinks and stuff when they get down there. The actual like securing the hotel rooms and stuff like that's never been done. I'm not saying it can't be done, but that would have to be.
But the All-Star team could participate in that, right? They could do a cash.
They
raffle or
could.
something
Me
like
and Seth can't sit out front with a money bucket.
I was
Yeah.
really money from the county to get the government rate. Don't pay taxes. You know, to me, it would be beneficial to run that. If you dangle that carrot for said coach, we'll cover the travel, it would be better if you could run it in the county, then you could get the government rate, the cheaper rate, and then,
Yeah, you're not wrong. That's a lot better.
I mean, if you're having trouble getting the people, you're gonna have to do something to get something, you have to create the incentive. And I think the other thing is you gotta make all sorts of big deal.
Well, I think if it's factored in at this particular time and it's put into the budget, that so much needs to be budgeted for the All-Star program to cover expenses for travel for All-Stars, then I don't see that number being large enough that it would be something that would completely throw the budget off for the rec department. That's what, I mean, they're right to know. So I think that's something that if you prepared an estimate of here's the cap, here's how much money we would invest into All-Stars for travel,
You're talking about
that's so
2
much
or
to
3
be
days.
about.
Here's the thing,
I
is
said
we do it,
$450 max.
you do it for one team.
You have to do it for all the All-Star
Yeah,
categories.
for all.
You have to do it for
And
each
it's
All-Star.
not, I was just thinking about that because Adam had brought up a big thing last year about baseball All-Star, or last year, one of our meetings this past summer, about baseball All-Stars, and you could very well do kind of what you're doing and build an RBI team out of the Pickens County All-Stars and say you do 3 tournaments. You know, you put Pickens County together, you do 3 RBI tournaments, we can budget it in, moving into the next year. RBI tournaments are competitive enough for a all-star team?
RBI, they run all-star tournaments strictly for all-stars.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, what basically be the same thing as far as baseball versus basketball, be the same thing. We go to the MAC, and then whatever the region or district tournament was, and if you win that, you go.
Yeah. Well, I see in baseball offers a whole lot better options as far as we don't have to win this or win that or whatever. We can put Pickens County Rec Department baseball kids in RBI tournaments. They might get slaughtered, but we can put them in there and they'll have that experience, that opportunity. And there's RBI tournaments within 30
Yeah,
minutes.
so our spring season, I played 3 tournaments at Rock Creek, which is 35 minutes up the road. Played one in Sandlot, which is, it's actually, I think it's an Alfredo address, but it's just south of Camp, just off Highway 20, Holden Campground.
There's Waleska does them. They do RBI tournaments up in Gilbert.
They do, so they did one in Blue, we played one in Blue Ridge,
Okay.
City Fields up there.
They're what? They're $400 entry fee for a team?
Yeah, it depends, anywhere from, I think the Gold Rush tournament was higher, I think it was 600. But they had a lot, that one was open, for single A all the way up through major.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's, if we're gonna do it, because football doesn't have to have all-stars. I mean, we're playing, we've got 9 teams in our age group now. They've got 8 teams. I mean, and we're all across North Georgia that's in our region already. We get a Super Bowl, we get a trophy, we get playoffs.
The season is the reason tournament.
Yeah. It's still very much relevant. Every major sport. Football, the regular season matters everywhere else.
And I think you gotta make all-stars a big deal. You gotta make people want to be a part of it. If it's not just we're gonna throw an all-star team together, I think they need to see banners and all that. To be an all-star, you gotta put them in the best uniforms. I'm not saying you gotta like head to toe Nike, but put them in some nice, clean, sweet-looking uniforms and let the kids go play. And I think the kids that they need to go represent Pickens with some pride. And we need to treat them like true all-stars. I think if you're gonna do all-stars and you want to make it attractive, and you want to make people get involved, you gotta make it nice. First thing you do as a baseball coach is buy a set of uniforms when you get hired on the job. You gotta look different, you gotta look good. I think that's part of it too.
Wouldn't tell that in the shoes.
No, but I can tell the stories of what I had when I got here, and we've worked hard to kind of turn that around, and we might not win a game, but we'll do it.
7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, 12, is there a 5, 6, or are you just talking about all-stars for those three?
So GRPA only recognizes 7, 8, and 12. There's no all-stars for 3, 4, or 5, 6.
Three age groups, male and female, so 6 total teams.
Yeah.
You're looking in terms of basketball. And then I know this will expand out if we allocate so much for all-stars, then that's the next fight we do was, hey, basketball, we got to do it for baseball, so it's gonna grow, but we can try to come up with what is a budgeted number. And then potentially maybe even work out when you talk about uniforms or something, can you get a sponsor that puts a name on the sleeve that covers a significant amount of the expense?
I don't think you'll have an issue at all finding sponsors.
Yeah, this is a great county. People around here.
They around here. We do it for our travel team.
I think it would be definitely growing. I mean, I know, I hate to encourage him to, go back and try to add more to his budget as he's already submitted his first draft of it. But at the same time, I think we've got to make it important. If it's going to succeed, you've got to make it important. That's the only way to do it. And then we can look for other revenue streams as part of this conversation next.
I think uniforms are like college. You show the kids what y'all got for
Yeah,
they ate it up.
They were ready to kick me in the shin when I showed them my fall ball uniforms because they're just t-shirts. Now spring ball, we had the V-neck and then we do the button up and button up for Sunday. That's for bracket play. And man, the kids get fired up. They really do. We went as far as we got the bat bags and helmets and the whole 9 for spring. There's definitely just like football jerseys. We weren't gonna wear polka dots last year. It just wasn't gonna happen. So, you show up feeling like you look good, you look like a ball player. Attitude and effort is everything. Kids look like it, they feel like it, they play like it.
Polka dots didn't win. So you know.
What's that?
Polka dots didn't win the Super Bowl last year.
Well,
Just so you know.
I'm aware. I still believe in that. Hey, I may win it this year.
Well, make a note that they get uniforms, they need to be green.
Okay.
Kelly Green.
I would say order them now.
And I still say on that, you do the reversibles, whatever, but.
You have to do reversibles in GRPA.
Yeah.
Green and white, that's the main what we do.
But, my thing, and I know I started this whole thing, but, I know we were having some all-star teams here and some there, and there was no consistency. And I just think that we've got to be consistent. That if we offer all-stars for one, it needs to be across the board, and it needs to be consistent. And so that's why, and I think this is good that.
And I would say too, as a baseball coach, you worry about doing this for other sports. Baseball will be a whole different animal. It's a whole different set of discussions for a whole nother day. It's changed so much.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I do have a question. Volleyball nets set up in there, do we have a volleyball league here?
We don't, we have flag football.
Yeah, volleyball is the fastest growing female sport in America right now. I don't know if we'll do anything to help accommodate that here. So I think it's,
So volleyball would be very similar to the way football is run. I think it's a spring sport. Spring sport for the mountain group. Because we'd have to have somebody play. So your Gilmers, I know Fannon's got a pretty big volleyball contingent up there. If that's something that y'all want me to offer, and it would be like football, whereas they would have to travel.
I think it's something we need to discuss with another meeting, because I do see you increasing participation in the rec department. But it needs to be done right. You know, you need to kind of get the process down airtight. It's probably not something we need to discuss tonight, but I think we got a big topic here on the menu.
Yeah.
But it is the fastest growing girls sports, and I have sat in many of Georgia World Congress Center with over 120 courts of keep girls hammering volleyball.
So between now and, what's our next meeting, November? Let me talk to Fannin County to see what their operating budget is for volleyball, and when their league starts, when their league ends, how does it affect softball? How does it affect softball numbers and things like that?
If you could increase participation in the rec department 10, 20, 30% over the next few years, you would increase, I'm assuming, operating revenue and that type of thing. So I think this thing is something that would be good for the kids.
We would need to lean heavily on junior high and high school to do camps, to teach everything there is, because
Are you opposed to an outside source?
I'm not opposed to anything.
I can help you.
Okay. Because most of us have grew up playing, basketball, baseball. We can find volunteers in the county who know a little bit about that, but volleyball would be kind of a different creature. So we definitely need help to try to find coaches, try to train the coaches to get them ready. And depending on how big our league would be, we're looking at trying to have to add a second goal. We don't have.
Do you think it'll take away from the softball or soccer numbers? Because softball's already slow.
Because basically you got 7/8,
I would say nationwide, softball and basketball, this is the hottest girls sport out there.
I would hate to.
I would say my daughters would, obviously they're volleyball players, but we make them try everything. I do think you'll have some parents do that. I think you should incentivize doing both. Like come play softball a couple nights a week, come do volleyball practice one night a week. And I think there's ways that you can probably do it. I've gotten a couple connections over the years. I do think you can see an influx, and it might hurt your softball numbers, but it would help your girl numbers. Does that make sense? So you might lose a couple softball players, but you can gain 20 to 30 girls, get more active involved, that type of thing.
Anybody else got anything? We go to the big topic we're here for tonight. All right, so we had the town hall meeting on the 29th. Commissioner Stansel has given out the notes from the meeting, and I'll turn it over to you, Chris. You're the talking man. I'll turn it over to you.
I appreciate everybody, all of y'all were there, actually at the town hall meeting too, so you got to see this firsthand. These notes, I think Lisa did an excellent job trying to just take and highlight what each person was saying. I don't think that from our perspective, there were any surprises that were brought up. I know that we wanted to put it out just to kind of see what is the interest. One, just the attendance at the meeting kind of tells you a little bit as to how passionate, because if if it's something you're really passionate, we did all we could to advertise, promote, push, get that information out there and to see who was there. Two, which groups we kind of represented the louder voices. I think pickleball was at least in a tie for number one in terms of interest from the community. The pool/aquatic center. I had hoped during the intro when I went over the cost of what an indoor aquatic center would be, and that it basically equaled the total annual budget for the entire county. This maybe we hear a few less comments about that. We didn't. I think we actually heard more from that. But that's just the reality we have to face. That's a $15 to $30 million project. So I'm not saying it's off the table. What I am saying is that's something that would have to be a part of a bigger project, a larger SPOS, a larger something that's not going to be in a short-range solution. Us as the Board of Commissioners, one of the things we've been just trying to go back and forth on is what do we do now? What's our short-range plan? I think we can all talk about long-range planning. We can all talk about a master plan. We had the loose or close designs come in and try to do a big master plan for Roper Park if they were to scalp it and start over. And it gave us individual component pieces as to what different things would cost, plus Brian and Seth had done a lot of research on other things as to what they would cost to go and do. We know that over the course of the next 3 years, we're going to have probably about $3.5 million that we can invest into building up parks and recreation. I mean, we know that. So it sounds like a fortune to look at the cost of every individual component, and then that $3 million can go in a blink. So we're trying to figure out what the best is, and that was where gathering that feedback from the community was, but then to come back with that feedback and sit down with you guys and work at this on a regular basis, to hear from y'all kind of priorities as to what you think. I know I've talked to Coach Williams a couple times about some of the programs you really need to build up, or some of the programs that can generate revenue to continue to build other things up, and to make sure that that's a factor that we're looking at. And so I really just kind of wanted to do it open-ended to where we could discuss, just have a conversation back and forth. Y'all can kind of talk about what you feel like is top priority. And then we can just to kind of build that list, almost take this list and prioritize it, and then if we need to add more into it, I think All-Stars is similar to one of the comments that got talking about expanding the season. How do we push this out further? So I think y'all are already on top of one of the things that was being discussed in the first place. And so that was the intent of us all getting together. Plus, I'll just be honest, I think we should do this more often. If you look at the way that the Parks and Rec Advisory Board is established and what it's established for, it was established when it was the sole commissioner, and the advisory board was to advise the commissioner on how to run the program, and then a director kind of came into the mix over the years, and it just kind of became something that the two would work close together. But the ultimate appointment is to advise the Board of Commissioners on how do we continue to invest in the community and make it better. So I think this is something we need to come up with a little bit more regular, routine way to add this to our calendars where we can get together. And it doesn't feel so awkward when we sit down at tables and try to figure out how do we face off. And let's make it where it's kind of natural and we don't feel like that when we're walking in. So it's, I think, a good thing. But I just want to open it up for y'all. And I know both Commissioner Pickens and Commissioner Tatum, both have got a tremendous amount of interest in seeing this Parks and Recreation thrive. So we're all three want to figure out what's the best way we invest in it. So I'm just going to throw it out there for you guys to dive in and say whatever.
I have a question. We talked about, obviously, pickleball, aquatic center. The pickleball, their selling point was, this is going to bring revenue to the county. That's fantastic. I'm not against that. How does that revenue from the county benefit recreation? How does it benefit us here at this facility?
So I've had conversations with a couple of the different individuals that they travel around and play at these pickleball facilities that are run by the county. And the county actually sets up to where, one, when there's tournaments, it's similar if you were to host a baseball tournament today. There's entry fees, there's things of that nature. There's certain things that would go directly into the program while the people were coming into town to participate, whether it's concessions or entry fees or whatever. Now, obviously, if it's a third party that's hosting the tournament, then those entry fees get split with, the use of the courts and what theirs would be. So it would be something that could be structured a lot of different ways. But then during the rest of the week, it's just free. It's similar. You can come here and play basketball, but if you're going to charge a gate fee for something else, then you have to pay to actually go in to the other event. So I think there's that way. That's where. When they're giving out the numbers for what it brings into the community, there's the fees that would come directly into Parks and Recreation or county government. The other is just a benefit if they came into the county and spent money when they spent their tax money. So there's two different ways to weigh that and to look at it.
How much of every dollar goes to the rec park, roughly? The dollar gets spent in Pickens County, how much of it goes to the rec park?
We just pulled that, it was in the presentation the other day, what the percentage of the total overall budget is that goes to rec. I think it's 2.5% of the total budget goes, so for every dollar, you're looking at 2.5 cents goes to Parks and Rec. Right. I mean, if you were to look at it from that perspective, it's.
So one number that was thrown out, I don't know if there was in meetings, like the pickleball has brought in outside revenue of $1.4 million, right? So that's butts and seats at restaurants, that's gas, that's, going to pick up a couple of paddles at Walmart or whatever. So $1.4 million, I'm not good at math, but that would be close to what? $20,000, $2,000 back into the budget. So, I mean, and that number's not big, but if you covered your operating costs through rental fees and that type of thing, you get a little bit of money back, but then you also, that money would somehow would grow through spending of a waitress now at another place, and that money would multiply throughout the economy.
I think you nailed it a little bit with just one thing you said in my mind when I'm sitting and brainstorming. The operating cost to operate pickleball courts is very minimal compared to a lot of other things that you're going to have. There's not a lot of constant maintenance. There's not a lifeguard that has to be out there watching it at all times. So when you have an event, you've got to have people to work gates and things like that. But I don't think you have as significant of an operating cost as you do to some others. That's my opinion on it. It's all, not all, but mostly upfront money and then maintenance that's factored in after the fact.
My thing about it is, we don't offer much for anybody under 12 years old. So, I feel like that we've got to expand what we offer as a service to the community, and that's going to be a fairly inexpensive way to do that. What I got out of that meeting, I got 4 points out of it. Number one, I think, and I've talked to both of them, and we've discussed it in here, they need a maintenance plan. So, put that number one. I think number two, we need to put 16 pickleball courts out there. If you put 4, all you're going to do is get started and turn around and have to put some more. So go ahead and put 16 in. You're going to have to do something with a pool. We're going to have to look at either redoing that one or putting a new one in. And then the fourth thing is, I think it was a great point on, this is the only option that people have to walk. So, let's look at finding another place that we can set up for people to walk. And, I think that we do a pretty good job with the youth, but I think we've got to really look more toward, the adults and what we offer for them. And I think that, if we do the pickleball courts and we look to find another area for walking that would accommodate people, that would, that's going to benefit a lot of people.
I think it's the fastest. I know they talked about the ages that are participating in pickleball being younger, but the population of our community is an aging community, and a lot of people all the time want to say it's our gated communities, but it's county-wide now. It's not limited to just gated communities. It's all over. So I think that to be able to offer more services for more citizens is definitely a good thing. Not at the detriment of taking care of students. I think that's a key essential. And I think that
that's what I got from it, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, it's what I've been calling the pickleballers gang name. That was one thing I got from it. If there was one thing any one of them said, they all said it. We moved here 7, 9, 10 years ago. We love it here. There's no pickleball courts. I have nothing against people moving to Pickens County. I love it. That's more money in my pocket. I run my own business doing residential construction. That's great. But, and even I moved here when I was in 3rd grade. But I consider myself home folk. And I don't want to appease the small with And I'm not against building pickleball courts if it makes sense. But I don't want a piece of small when we've got the medium. Yeah, there's pickleballers here. We had 650 kids signed up to play ball last year. And because I've done travel baseball, I've been around and our fields don't compare. We've got 12 football teams in this county. We've got one football field. We got kids, you're coaching first grade this year, your boys are learning how to play football in left field up here at field one. You're not even on field one. Where are you?
I'm on field 2, sir.
On field 2.
Right.
I think, you know, once again, and I know Ms. Donna said build 16 of them. I disagree with that number. And if they're, you know, one thing being running our business, what I would tell homeowners, if you're not sure about something, don't spend money on it. If it's something you can add or change a little bit later down the road, when you really decide, yeah, I like that. Because here's the thing, even in any kind of construction, you never take away. You always add more. It never gets cheaper. It always gets more expensive. So if we start out the gate, going 16, wherever we put them, going 16 pickleball courts up there, and this fad lasts for another 3 years, or this, you know, that group of pickleballers, you know, they hit it for 10 years. We get 10 years out of those courts. That's great. And nobody really uses them. You know, we used to have tennis courts, and I know that's the city. We used to have tennis courts over there at the tech field. They still do. Do they? I ain't where they used to be.
They're next to the dog. There's more people at the dog park
But
than
is anybody
there's tennis courts.
I don't
Does
think so. I
anybody
think
use
it's,
it? And that's my thing is I would hate to eat up valuable space because we are limited on acreage here. I think something that would benefit us, you know, like I said, I'm not against the pickleball court. I don't agree with 16 of them. I think we shrink that number. Maintenance facility, new bathrooms, to have the infrastructure where not only can we do pickleball tournaments there, but then we can start looking at baseball, softball tournaments. The track and field cross country can come over here and not have to bring in a load of porta johns every time they come to use the facilities. And I think that way, not only are we getting it from pickleball, now we're getting it from baseball, softball. We're building that revenue through 2 parties instead of just one. We're not putting all our eggs in one basket.
So, Chris, I actually spoke to Hans after Hans was the one that spoke at the meeting. I asked him that question, what is the magic number to start off with? Because they built 4 in LJ, and they already need more. He said the magic number to start off would probably 8. He said that 8 would be a good start.
But I got a follow-up email from Bob Coleman, who was kind of a lead spokesman who represents the Southeast Something Pickleball Association, and 8 was the number he included in the email. That he went from 4 would be great, 8 would be better, covered would be even better. So it grew. The more you read, the more expensive it got. But 8, I think, was the number he was seeking. And I'm kind of, when you talk about space is one of our biggie. I did have a meeting with the city of Jasper the day before yesterday, just talking to them about Jasper City Fields, Jasper City Park. Look, I know we ended the IGA because we're not going to invest in putting in new lighting, but do you have plans for it? Because they're catching pressure about pickleball, just like we're catching pressure about pickleball. And I'm like, do y'all have plans at this point in time for doing something with it, or is it something? So I don't want to duplicate. If they're trying to figure out how to build a pickleball complex, I don't want us to be trying to figure out how to build a pickleball complex a couple miles down the road. Their focus is kind of tiered. They've started the project that they've had going at Doris Wigington. They've applied for the grant to finish the amphitheater project at the Hero Park in downtown. And then they were going to move toward Jasper City. They had an engineer that they were going to come and give them recommendations on things they could do. So they don't have anything in the short range. They may in the long range try to bring that into play, and they may continue the conversation. There was no real indication on signing anything over or giving that property to the county for us to then turn around and build that there. And I asked, but it was just with a couple members of the committee. It wasn't with the full council. So I don't know that that's going to be any kind of a short-range solution. So if this is something we're trying to do within the next couple of years, I think we're going to have to figure out a way that we're going to do it. Commissioner Tatum had brought up a while back just on property expansion. How high on our priority list would it be? I know we've tried to contact the landowners that own the property, just to the, I guess, west of where we're sitting right now, the west side of the park, with the two different parcels there that would actually double the park size. But if we invest all of that money into land, those are for future things. We're not really going to have a whole lot to show other than we've got land at that point in time that we can start grading it. But we've got to build that money back up to actually put stuff on it. So it's trying to how do we juggle how much do we invest in future expansion versus how much do we invest in, participating in what do we need to do right now. And so I think that's another wrinkle that we didn't talk a whole lot about during the town hall. That was, I think people talked about building something on the west end, and we've gotten comments about building something on the east end in the past too. But if it's just buying the land next to us to expand, if we can get an agreeable price, as to, what are your thoughts on that?
Do we own any land on the west side again?
Not in any, we own like fire stations and, the acreage for those other pieces of property, but not anything that's open, that gives you the space.
I know at one point in time, there was money from the state to maintain a green space. Is that money still available?
The DNR, the last set of grants that DNR gave out, that was money similar to green space, I'm trying to remember the specifics. It didn't really qualify for any of the projects that we've discussed for walking trails and things like that. Now, if it, like our hiking trails, the property we own off Burnt Mountain Road, there's grants that could do things, but it's very steep terrain. There's a lot there, so there was money available for that. There's money if we have very low economic areas, but we don't qualify because we're a tier 3 community according to the state of Georgia, so we're not eligible, even though we all know that that's not countywide, but that's how we're tiered. So there's not a lot of grant money. I know Kelsey's been studying and researching on different grants right and left, and every time we get an update from any federal or state grant that comes out, that we're trying to study every word to say, can we apply this here? And in the last 2-3 years, there has not been anything of any significance. I think we had one that we had a very short window to apply, but it was an $8,000 grant. So that you're not gonna be able to pull off a whole lot. But we are still studying and trying to find out. That was one of the reasons by holding the balance in the SPOS accounts. If we did find a grant, then we would have the matching funds to be able to double whatever the funds were there. But they aren't popping up. So it's one of those we've got to make some decisions to move forward or which way we go.
So what's the number on pickleball court?
We don't have a specific yet. We've got a couple groups that had talked to us about giving us quotes, and we're going, I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, it's kind of glancing back over. Lumpkin County's in the middle of construction on something right now, and we've got a meeting that we've been trying to pinpoint the date, but one day next week, I'm supposed to go over and meet with their chair and their county manager to sit and talk about not only their pickleball, but their pool, because they're in the middle of building the pool at the same time. And it's a big SPOS project. They're also building a community center like what we're in, so they're doing all three at one time as a massive SPOS project. But we can get real numbers of what they're spending in real time. I've talked to a couple of people that are developers that have built pickleball courts in subdivisions that don't necessarily specialize in just the Parks and Rec community. And the number seems to range from anywhere from $100,000 a court up. So, I mean, if you're looking at our $100,000 for 2 courts, or $100,000 would give you 2 courts, which was equivalent to the tennis court. So you're looking, if you were going to build 8, ballpark rough estimate would be somewhere that 5 to 8 in that category. But we don't have a firm number on that yet. That's very speculative. So I'd hate to see you get quoted, but it's about to get quoted. But it's a little bit less expensive than some of the other projects. I mean, it's compared when you put them stacked up against building a new pool for $3 or $4 million, then 500 to 800,000 is definitely a much more doable, practical, real project, especially if you have a flat piece of ground to put it into. I had talked to Brian briefly just after we had the town hall and just kind of speculating an idea where Field 1 is as to one half or one portion of it being pickleball and building a large concession restroom area next to it and reserving the next side for the new pool. so that when the pool can expand, so that field would then account for all of those things. And it would account for being able to expand the walking path and the parking around to get into them. Just as an idea, after hearing the comments, that those three things, but you lose field in the process. That's, no, we don't use it as a regular field except for football practices and things like that. But there's just no other space to build something that's gonna be of high quality, I guess, than that particular spot without buying property for the outside of it. And that was just a brainstorm idea that we were kind of going through, but I do think it would fit. I think it would be right here, it's convenient, depending on which side the pool went on and things like that. It would give a way to do it, and then you can do 2/3 of that on the front end, and then start building up the funds for the pool for the final.
I spoke to, so Gilbert County they've been working on the pool project for years now. They're actually working on the pool when I was up there over 10 years ago. I had the project manager come down here and take a look at our existing pool. And he said we need to dig a new hole immediately. As soon as he saw it, he saw what it was. He saw that, it doesn't meet any sort of ADA compliant. It was built in 1986. His recommendation was to dig a new hole. Didn't know where he would recommend putting it at, and he said, on the low end, because Gilbert's is going to be around 2.93. Fannin County is doing a rehab on their existing city pool, that's going to be 3. So, but I think abandoning the old pool will need to happen, and we'll need to dig a new hole somewhere. Field 1 is our last flat spot, honestly, that don't have fill lines or don't have bad drainage or anything like that. But he said if we have questions that we can definitely bounce some stuff off him. He is not a pool expert, but he's been working with their pool probably for 3 years now to try to get it to where it's at. It's going to be really nice. There's some things I wouldn't do, but it's going to be nice. And
we jokingly entertain just, a nice pond. I mean, we are in the North Georgia mountains with a beach on one side, a good pond to go out. You can trout fish one side, swim on the other. Be a reservoir. I mean, there's so much we can do.
Have we talked with the school board at all about that?
Not officially, and that's one of the things I want to talk to Lumpkin County about. Lumpkin, when they originally started their pool project, there was going to be a joint. They were building a new outdoor pool, but the school was going to kind of chip in to put the heaters and a removable dome.
Right.
So the dome would be in place for the winter time, and then it would come back off. And then they reached a point where they didn't agree on the finances, and so the dome part got pulled out of the project. But we know they did the research prior to, so we should be able to see the numbers as to what was this going to look like. Because I do think the school system's open to sitting down and having the conversation for their swim team. Because if you go through the notes from the meeting, all of the pool comments, I think there might have been one that was not, but they were all part of swim team from the high school. So I think that it shows that they built up a great program and they're participating, doing a great. They still have more local to participate. So when we talked to Lumpkin, that was one of the first things that we wanted to try to take a look at. So I know y'all didn't move forward with it, but can you show us, what were the estimates? What did you have? What were the quotes that you had? And I do believe that whatever they have, they're going to be more than willing to provide those to show us. Then we can go back to the school and say, okay, if we built a new pool, would you be willing to invest this into it or not? Because then it's removable. It's not something that's a permanent fixture. You haven't built a new indoor swim facility. It's something you can put up and keep it where it would work during the winter time and then take it back off. So it just gives us another option, but we won't know how realistic that option is until we see a better setup.
The operational cost is what I would be
And that's
curious to
the
see.
it's the heat.
It's astronomical.
It's the actual paying for the heat. How are you going to heat?
Well, and that was, if you can go by, it's public information in the Lumpkin County newspaper where they had the arguments back and forth. The Board of Commissioners had actually done the research to figure out what it was going to cost to heat that pool, and as long as the school was willing to pay that bill, they were willing to put the heater in, and then when the school changed their mind about being willing to pay that bill, they no longer installed the heater. So it just, because they were doing it just for the purpose of providing it for that, not for not for a broad purpose. And then, you know, depending on how it's run or how it's used, if it's used for aquatics classes and aerobics and things like that, you don't necessarily have to have a lifeguard as much as you do. You have to make sure there's trained, certified people to teach. So the operating costs can go up and down, but they're substantial, and there's not going to be the kind of revenue that, I mean, I know everybody says a pool will bring in revenue, it's not going to bring in the kind of revenue that's going to justify the expense of a couple extra $1 million. There's just no way that you can reach the point where you see that. I know it does in some counties, but you're talking about counties with 250,000 people. They have a lot more people that are going to them than we don't have that. We have 34,000. So, I mean, we've just got to be realistic. We want to provide the best we possibly can, but we really don't have 250,000 people that are sharing the burden of covering those costs, and that's just a reality that we've got to face. So.
I know it's not popular vote, it didn't come up in all those extra ones, but I agree with Kyle. We need to make the shed. We need to tear down the old rec department and build nice bathrooms, a nice concession stand, a nice pavilion that's not terribly expensive, that gets some covered stuff, and then maybe we host some RBI tournaments. I mean, I'm pretty dead in springtime, you know, wrestling in about March. I don't mind volunteers coming, I do the best I can anyways, but if we have a nice, every RBI tournament that I've been to, because I go and watch some of my kids play football for me for years, and I go to some of the softball tournaments that my goddaughter plays on, and then some of the really nice perfect game tournaments and stuff, but the one consensus for places that they like to pick, they have a central location that is covered, that has nice restrooms and a concession stand. Because that building is dilapidated. I went in there and used the restroom for the first time at practice the other day since I played rec ball here in third grade. It smells the same, it looks the same, it's all the same.
It hasn't changed.
Along with us storing, you know, gas and equipment and things like that right next to where we have concession stand and restrooms. I don't think that we might be grandfathered into something, but you could never build something like that again. But it would give us an opportunity if we take some of that money to build that. I know we kind of talked a little bit about it. Plumbing's already there, which is expensive.
Well, the septic system is there. Yeah,
You're going to have to.
It's a 55-gallon drum.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd be
impressive.
surprised.
It really
if
is.
a lot of work on
Wow.
that.
Those same septic systems don't get put in.
55-gallon.
Well, that's just for the concession, like, concession stand. There's a 500-gallon set.
95, I think. 95 is when the official part.
That was
started.
the pride of
That was
95.
the first thing, so it would have been 95, and then they had the triple wide trailer that sat next to it, so.
No, but we had moved up to
want to build
get that.
Yeah.
It was
It wasn't that large of a
So-
It was super nice when it was first put in.
So Josh has a question, and we've given this a lot of thought. Most maintenance sheds are built away from the public eye. The most readily available that is hardly ever used would be the far south end of the park. There's an area down there that's near the old pond that we would like to see if we're able to get a shop, get put back there. And then all of our stuff would be stored back there. Some of the numbers that loose throughout as far as shop goes, I think are wildly inaccurate. As far as how much it would cost to build a functional shop. We need something where we can store all of our equipment, place where we can do maintenance on our equipment. And
But I thought the chandeliers were a great touch on the other maintenance
Yeah.
shop that was presented in there.
and we can safely store our gas and things like that. And we just don't have that right now. But the south end, you go all the way in the park, the area on the right-hand side, that's where we would like to see the maintenance shed put.
So, well, when you say, you know, you're naming stuff you want to store down there, what do you 60 foot by
So,
20, 60 by?
We would like to have a miniature version of what the road department has. We don't need anything that big. We need something that's similar, that's got a couple of bays where we can do our work.
Yeah.
Bathrooms for the guys, just something simple. Anything is better than what we have right now, because we got pieces of equipment spread among 4 buildings here at the park, and everything is so spread out. Whereas if we had everything centrally located, then we can start tearing down those old existing buildings and putting something back in its place.
So are you thinking to put the new concession just basically where the old one is, just tear it down and rebuild something?
Yes.
Right there with it?
Yeah.
And then where else would you want to put restrooms?
South end somewhere.
Just somewhere down the
Yeah.
side too?
So
So
it-
just two sets you're thinking? One with the new concession
we
stand
could-
down there?
The two things that we are lacking right now, we've been lacking forever, is parking and bathrooms. I mean, that is something that we get hit on every single year, is bathrooms and parking. Any upgrades to the number of bathrooms is only gonna be a benefit. Because right now, we've got a men's room and a women's room, the old concession stand. South end, we got two single use stalls. And then we got the community center.
And a porta potty at the old side.
And the porta potties after that. So.
So you'd like
anything-
one down by the soccer fields too?
Potentially. It just depends
If we
on.
had everything we ever
It's
wanted.
the septic drain field that it becomes where do you run the drain field without tearing out the fields? Was when we were looking at some of the property, there's some areas on that south end that would work, is the replacing the existing one is where's it gonna run? If you built one on field one, if you put an area in field one, you could actually put the drain field in underneath some of the other.
So can you put a drain field under a sports field? Is that
You
okay?
can't put any permanent surface on top of it. You can't put concrete, you can't put
But
asphalt.
you could
You
put a
could have
soccer
the grass
field.
You
field.
can put grass in it.
Can you put one under the soccer fields? Does that drain or?
Part of it is.
I don't think it is.
You got part of the Boys and Girls Club right there.
Okay.
That's where all the water from this whole park is.
Well, part of it already goes back there from the Boys and Girls Club where theirs is, they already have one that's on one side of it, it's the other side that as it goes back up in elevation, what they call the Rotary Peace Park. If you got behind the Rotary Peace Park, from talking to the environmental health, she believes there's an area through there that would perk. We haven't had it officially tested yet, but just in conversation, she believes it would perk through there.
Is junior high on sewer? Is it junior high on sewer?
It is, but it's a force main that goes to there, which means for us to tie onto it, it's a force main that goes through there, and you can't just add a second connection service directly into where force mains run. You've got to get to the other side and feed it from the other side.
The number that Lowe's gave us for that was $1 million at the time.
Yeah. We were basically looking at spending our entire SPOS budget underground with just infrastructure, just power, water, and
So
sewer.
for this piece of property, to try to get it on sewer would be overly significant to try to do versus if we add 2 more septic areas and create the number of bathrooms that you would need to do it. But yeah, that was our first conversation, was would we do it? And then also, with the conversation we just recently had with the city about the airport, if it's not annexed and it's not their property and theirs, then they're not running sewer to it at all. So they would have to make it city property before they would let their sewer lines come into it. So we would have to jump through those hurdles.
All right, I'm not from here, okay? I'm from Alabama. All right. I don't understand the lack of cooperation between the county and the city. Like,
It's not too much right now on the cooperation. What it is right now is capacity. They have committed to a number of projects and they're at almost full capacity, so they're not expanding to anything outside their city limits. And even with the city and the county government, I believe that they're cautious to do it for anybody, because then everybody else that's been trying to tap onto it is going to start saying, well, you did it over here, you're going to have to do it over here. So they're not willing to try to open that door up at the moment. That was from, and we had a long conversation earlier this week just on talking about it. It's while they're working through their capacity and trying to get their capacity expansion, they're not moving it outside the city limits on the sewer until they know that they can actually provide for the
so I kind of feel like we're putting out a house fire with a 5-gallon bucket, but there's a lot of
we got garden hose, it's not just 5-gallon buckets.
But
We're not in fire.
there's a lot of things here that need to get better, and if there was cooperation between and I'm here again, I don't know, somebody, at Coach Williams on Twitter, just, help me understand. It seems like if we could all work together for the betterment of the whole, right, a lot of this stuff that we're talking, we could better use our money, they could better invest their money, and the whole community gets better. I do understand the need for bathrooms. I've been in there. I do understand the need for a shed. I completely understand the need for walking track on the other side of the county. Like, and I think you can probably kill 2 or 3 birds with one stone. So I think what we've got to do is if it's $400,000 for 8 pickleball courts, $400,000 for a shed, why couldn't we go, and here again, I don't know, I know property value is ridiculous right now. We couldn't go to the west side of the county, grade out 2 football fields that could be used as soccer fields with a walking track around. And we just killed 3 birds there with what little bit of money we got. I think we need to find a way to be good stewards of this money that we got, and if we can get as many projects done. And I also think we should put a sign somewhere that says new pool's coming, because I do think that's in the next thing, and I think that would be good for the elected officials to say that there's a new pool coming.
If we could get that SPOS, you know, we had talked about that,
Yeah.
you know, get that SPOS passed, and at that point, then I'm tickled pink with all the revenue that's gonna come into this county.
But those are 2026 before that.
Since we've got
Yeah, what we're trying to do is figure out
$1.4
what we do,
million
what we have between now and 26.
Correct. And obviously, the pool's not
we
there.
got $300,000-$400,000 projects we can knock out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and we've got enough to do those $400,000 projects. That's what we're trying to figure out is, okay, how do we prioritize? Because then, the one thing that's not been brought up, I think somebody mentioned the quality of the fields, but the fencing and the dugouts, the price quotes that came in for fencing and dugouts and all that to replace throughout the park, I think it was $700 at one point. So, I mean, those are still things we've got to start to look at that we haven't finished getting. Some of those dugouts are in rough shape. When you get to the younger ages, they get worse.
But put it at,
Huh?
put it at,
I mean, here again, we're
which is 4 fields, 3 fields, surrounded by.
putting out a fire with water hose, so. I'm just big on taking this money and putting it in something that's gonna help us in the long run. All right, so I like things that bring money back to the county. I do understand the need for a shed. I do understand the need for a walking track, but it just blows my mind that there's no sewer line out here. I'm not from Jasper, so I can't tell, but I do know, and I don't know the studies on this, is that we hosted baseball tournaments at Pickens High School. The outside company paid us the rent, but the fact that I leave the carriage house and there's a kid from Chicago and his parents walking into this carriage house, that money's going to multiply throughout the county, right? And that money, we might not, that $1.4 million, that might not be like a huge number right off the bat, but when that revenue multiplies, think of how the Federal Reserve does it. When that money multiplies throughout the economy, that $1.4 million can turn into a good bit of chunk of money for a lot of people around here, make a lot of people's life better. And I think that's kind of how we do this. And I'm all on board on helping kids. I do it for a living. But how do we make Pickens a better place? How do we build this thing so that it can grow in the future? And I think that's what we got to look at. Look, I'm all about throwing some fields down, but these fields truly help us grow. 2026, we revisit things, but I think you take this $1.4 billion, we got to figure out how to get our best bang for our buck here. If it is tied into that sewer line, if it is doing 3 or 4 different projects, you just got to figure out what is the best way to invest this money.
So what would it take? I know you guys have been talking about parking, bathroom, and concession. What would it take to build Roper Park? Is there enough small projects that we can do that would make it worthy of hosting a tournament here?
So I was thinking of the same thing, and to Adam's point. So if you build the shed, you've got to make something shiny and pretty. Because if you build the shed, they're like, we went to this town hall, they built a maintenance shed. Yeah. Knuckleheads. Anyhow.
You read my mind.
I know too, sir. But we have to take what we have, and regardless of it, you know, and I've been here my whole life, and I'm ignorant to it, so don't feel bad. And I'm from out there too, but nice to meet you, sir. But anyhow, I think we need to build a shed. But to his point, we take field 2 and 3. It'll be a smaller tournament. but you gotta start somewhere. We have this, and we need to fix what we have. We built that pavilion in a really nice spot. You make field 2 and 3 really attractive fields. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 can play on those 2 fields. They're within the range, you know, they're the right size. We have to extend it. There's a little space on the back side of field 3 there. And then we do the pickleball courts and spend about $25 on a sign to say future home of the pool on the other side of that, because you're not wrong.
At least they can thank that, turn it off in her own.
Yes, something. But I think that that's a comprehensive way to try to spend the money to build what we have. Because the fact is, we go and buy new land on the west end of the county that's astronomical, that Jimmy Joe over there, it's been his family for 150 years. They were the first family to move here. If you ask him, they're not coming off that property. And if they do, it's going to be exponentially higher.
And you get a Roper family though, and that's what I think, the Roper family donated what we have here, and I think that's where, it seems like nobody talks about that anymore. Nobody talks about that. A lot, and most parks that are named after somebody or most locations, because that family is the one that donated that to make it available for their community. We just haven't had those type of offerings, those type of opportunities. Right now is the most inflated real estate time in history.
Especially on
West
West
Hard, so to try to figure out a way to actually make the purchase. One of the, was this somebody that called you, or I'm trying to remember, on the Hill City, about trying to find ways to work with Hill City Elementary, where the big space that they have to the right of the school, that kind of create something that could still be used for a form of a park, and work with the school system on that. So as we got the information on the pool and different things to go sit down, they're more than willing to sit down and have a conversation. I don't think anybody's made any commitments that they're going to do A, B, or C, but I think we can sit down with the school system and try to figure out, okay, how can we work together to try to figure out how do we provide some things, not compromise safety for students. So if it's anything that's going to compromise safety, then we'd have to move beyond that in no time. But I mean, they've got land at Harmony, they've got land at Hill City, they've got some land at some other places that if we're able to come up with some game plans together.
So other than fixing the fences and the dugouts on the baseball fields, what has to be done to the field itself? Do they need to be turfed? Do they have, I mean, what all is
Yeah,
needed to be
you
done?
mentioned 2 and 3 making it the show.
What
That's what I was
needs to be
kind
done
of
to
curious.
those?
I mean, if we had fields 2 and 3, even if we had just the infield turf, then that alleviates a lot of problems as far as cancellations because of rain. I don't know how the hybrid
I would not
works.
turf just in the infield.
Right,
People
so-
that have done that have found that all that water just drains into the outfield, and the outfield becomes unplayable. Be honest with you, you could probably get away with minimal work. I think, I mean, just from being out there, you would have to put some clay in those fields. You'd have to get them regraded. If you were really truly wanting to make them a showcase field, you do need to probably get sort of chemical on the turf company out there to really get the grass right. You know, if you're going to try to host tournament games out there. I am not the one to ask on this because I do not go to like tournaments at Rock Creek Park or places like that. So I can't tell you the quality of those fields. I mean, to be honest with you, a kid in the high school age group has played more games on turf than they have on natural grass by this point. So, I mean, I really couldn't tell you what other parks look like. I think if you are truly looking big picture, you need a cloverleaf, big enough fields that you can run separate games out of the corners of the park. And this is, the Hoover City has done it right. They have built a big enough field where you can play 3 games on every field. There's dugouts and there's dugouts in the home plate area, and then out in the outfields, there's dugouts on the right field, left field corners on both sides. And they can run 2 little kid games in the outfield, and they can run a 11 and 12-year-old game on the infield. So they're rather large fields, but they truly maximize their square footage per inch out there. I think if you wanted to make another thing to run in the tournament, you're going to have to invest in batting cages. You're gonna have to put some concrete down and some turf. And I would be all about that as the baseball coach. That way the kids have a place to go hit. So you're probably looking at, I know, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in concrete, just for the batting cages. I'm guessing, I don't know the concrete prices. But you could probably get those fields and everything ready to play for less than $150,000 if you did them right. Now that's not,
That's for 2 fields.
yeah, because you're probably looking at $20,000 with the dirt and grading on both fields, some chemicals, some turf treatment in the outfield, and then you would have to probably redo the batting cages. You would want to expand them because if you're going to bring teams in, they're going to hit, and you'll need two cages per field. So you would need 4 total cages.
It's a brawl to get the cages.
Huh?
Every tournament, it's a brawl to get the cages.
Yeah.
And I think possibility of looking ignorant, how much would it cost to actually turf an entire field compared to what you just said?
I'm not sure about the smaller fields, but the turf at the high school, the turf on the baseball field costs more than the turf on the football field. There's more square footage out there. So you're looking at potentially $1 million approximately for a red field.
Perfect.
A field.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, like just,
We can
Basically, what he
we can
said
mow a
is-
lot of grass.
What he said is grass is good.
Grass is great, we love grass.
so I was able to,
That's gonna be in the paper. We love grass.
but I went to Cary, North Carolina, and there again, there's another place that is truly invested in fields, and those USA fields in Cary, North Carolina are owned by the city government of Cary. Those are not USA's fields. They're completely owned. But those, the fields that we did the 11 and 12 Team USA stuff on were all dirt fields, but they were pristinely graded. And we sat up there and watched the rain, and they ran, and it was really cool. They ran down the fence line, they ran a concrete gutter. So the fences were set in concrete gutter. And we watched the rain pour one day, and all that stuff flowed out and hit that concrete gutter and ran right out in the parking lot. And we were playing ball on it within an hour. You know, so you could do the fields relatively cheap. Before we jump into this, I would run the numbers on what a baseball tournament would bring in versus other options. And I agree, I'd like a pool, but we're 30,000 people. I think we need a new pool, and I do think we need a new sign out there that says pool's coming. But
But we gotta actually be prepared to have a pool
no,
coming.
I don't think you have an option to build a pool. It's got to happen.
So are only fields 2 and 3 the proper size? No, like 4 and 5 aren't?
Well, they are for smaller ones, but.
Field 6 is not too much smaller than 3. I think they're really, really close to the same size. I know the infield's the same size.
Left field is 178, right field is like 196.
Right.
But last week, I met with a gentleman from Premier Fast Pitch, and he's looking at doing tournaments here next year. You know, I mean, I gave him some parameters, and we're working on knocking out dates, but I mean, anytime somebody's come to us, we've never turned them away. We show them what we've got, tell him what he would have to bring in. Like, you know, we don't have the sewage infrastructure, so you know, you have to bring in some porta potties. He was okay with it. We're working on within the next 7 to 10 days, I should have dates that I can okay. And I mean, he's looking at running tournaments all the way from field 2 to field 7 or 8, depending on the age group.
Right.
So it's more than doable with what we have now, which just, you know,
Well, we just
never turned it
it's
down.
the first 2 things you see. It's the 2 sizes for, I mean, like Mackenzie, when she plays, they're the same size field. And she plays on a high-level travel team. And I'm not saying that we're going to get those teams in here, but the B-level teams, they bring people too.
That was my other question. Can you host baseball and softball on, will softball play on this field?
The right age
You
groups.
can
Right
host,
age.
You can stub them out for.
yeah, you still out softball
Okay.
and
That's
baseball.
what you do.
And as far as the way our fields compare, Adam's right, it wouldn't take much to get our fields. I mean, like I said, we spend most of our time at Rock Creek. it's a nice facility. They are Cloverleaf. We don't have the width.
Yeah,
Here to
and that was
do
part of that plus design, was to ask, that was one of the first things we asked, where can we put it globally, how can we do it? You know, you came back and said, you can't
do
you
that.
have to buy property to do it, so.
But, and so that's just gonna, that's, we're going to dance with girl we wrong. That's just what it is. This park is long, it's stretched out, so that's just what we have. I think if we did, put some money into fields 2 and 3, make the shed concession right there, that'd be more or less your central hub. Have some bathrooms down there south in the park. Field 6, I know, the fields we played on last weekend, were between 2 and 225. So those fields relatively fall in that. Field 6, Field 3, Field 2. You got 3 fields right there. If we didn't do anything and left Field 1, you throw a temporary fence up. Where you got I think we had it on Field 2. Is that right?
Yeah.
You do something like that and then reset the bases. You can run older age groups up there. What Adam was saying about grading, I agree. I think our answer to keep the fields from flooding is to bring in enough dirt to raise those fields 6 inches.
Drainage actually fixed, right?
Raise the field 6 inches that the water runs off of it and runs around it. I think that's.
You gotta run into the corners, that's the first thing.
There's a natural drain that comes down through that we have an opportunity for it. It's just where that water goes after it, because it comes down the field and then out the other side. So there's a real opportunity for it. The biggest problem, because we went after that flood we had the other day, and again, when we do this, we're going to find a place for first grade to practice football. Well, we'll be second grade by the time all this stuff. Anyhow, the bigger problem is the drain. So Field 3 is a larger issue because of the runoff from the parking lot.
Correct.
But with grading, obviously, anybody, if we paid somebody, they know what they're going to do, they'll take that into account and get that money shed away from it. But we've already done the new playground. There's enough room to fix the batting cage we have, plus put another one. We're only going to have 2 fields running these tournaments, and like Kyle said, I mean, dancing we already brought. We have an opportunity and enough money, enough funds to be good stewards in the community, but bring this a little more up to par, because if we start spending money in other places, it's been my experience in business or anything else, you start spending money in all these other spots, but you don't fix what you already have. Before you know it, you have 3 spots that are in the same shape as what you started with. I mean, and I get walking on the west side of the county might be a huge deal. I don't think it's as big a deal as what some may have made it, and I'm not discounting their opinion or their perception, because their perception is their reality. The bad part is we are only 34,000 people, and to build an entire park on the west end of the county that is a third of the population as the whole east side of the county doesn't make a lot of sense. Because I go, we go in Big Bent Tree, we have membership, we swim up there, and I'm no doubt those pickleball courts are full every time. The only problem is it's very similar to golf for adults. For those of you who don't play golf, most people drink when they play pickleball, or at least that's my perception. That's what I've seen that they're doing at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning or 10 o'clock on a Saturday. Oh, 100%. You take a bunch of guys that are 30, 35, they go out there and play pickleball. That's what they do. Yeah. Oh, they were out there blaring music, and they were having a fantastic time, not a doubt in my mind. And they weren't disruptive, they weren't disrespectful, anything like that. They were just having a good time on Saturday, right? Which would be, we want the older group here or the younger group, vice versa. We don't want that, the middle-aged guys out there ruining things for folks.
One other thought I had, I'd like to know y'all's opinion on it. What if we use the area where the basketball court, the outdoor basketball court is, use that for pickleball courts?
That'd be great if you take a big pole out of the middle of the road.
Well, we can fix the pole.
But they're actually getting the pole.
We
Is there enough room where we need to take the basketball courts out?
No, so we need to take the basketball courts out, but we need to grade that entire hill, either bring dirt in or take dirt out. But that,
all the baseball fields.
that's actually an ideal place, because when they put that big pole right in the middle, I was like, oh gosh. I called Chris, I was like, now we can't do anything with this property right here because it's been taken up. But we could put the pickleball court up there, plus we could push parking around the Roper Park sign area. And, I mean, that basketball court is used some. So, you know, if we were able to put more, if we did 8 courts and then we're able to keep like one basketball area, I think we would.
That's what I was wondering, could you make it, I mean, I guess you could, make it a pickleball court where it can also be a tennis and a basketball court, or what as need be, or did it just not work out at all?
Here again, you miss a prime opportunity if you don't put the pickleball courts down.
And that's, and the thing is
I would go work, the city and the government was gonna sit down and figure out a way to get those fields and how to put those pickleball courts in there.
Because then they can walk to the
They
restaurant.
can walk to the restaurants and lunch. And I'm not so sure I wouldn't put the pool down there on that bottom.
Yeah, so
Wait,
I
say-
was telling Josh, the other issue with putting them up there would be lack of restrooms. There's no restrooms out there. Now, we could keep the pool area open, but you'd have to walk around through there to get to the actual pool or the bathrooms in the pool.
And to get the city to share the costs. You're talking, would you say $200,000 per pair, per court? If they want to go halfsies. I mean, I think that's a good deal for both parties. Fix up some bathrooms, because they have some over there, right? And you could legit host things, things could come back. I just, that's prime location.
Are you talking about the city park? Yes.
Yeah, that's a prime location that could benefit the whole community. And then we can still do something out here. But if I'm looking big vision, looking down, and I really think it would be cool to bring the community to the town, and let it kind of revolve around downtown. Those city parks are perfect. You could have impact out here, you could have massive impact down there.
So
That's the way I look at it.
do we need to, just to touch on that, do we need to try and do what, because I haven't been on the rec board long. I've dealt with the rec department for a very long time just because I enjoy it. Do we need to have a very similar meeting with the city council? Are those the right
I think
folks?
there was a chance, they had indicated that the 2 members of their Parks Committee were going to attend tonight, but they're not here, so I'm not sure. That was why I met with one of them when we were talking the other day. And I think that individually, none of them are going to come out right now and say, yes, I think they want to see some of the same things, they just don't want to give up their property in order to do it. We can't spend all of our money on their property, so
I agree,
that's going to be a challenge as to how do we actually have the funds in the bank to move forward on the project, and they have the piece of dirt that you can try to do it. And there wasn't a no, there was just we want to take a look at it, and we've got an engineer that's coming to try to study what options could be there. So we can revisit it again. I mean, it's definitely one I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, and that may be something we need to do, because it's been my experience that engineers that come out and look at things, and consultants that come out and look at things are the very best people at selling absolutely nothing for a very high price. You need to get
We've got a beautiful plan in our park that somebody gave us that was for 5 times
You gotta
more
get
than we told
contractors out there.
them. Yeah, we're fully aware of that. And so we're going to keep trying, we'll keep forcing them to give us their property maintenance easier, so we're trying to come up with how to work.
Maybe it is, maybe there's a formal invitation extended to them, end of, we're almost in the 3rd quarter this year, maybe middle, maybe we give the extended formal invitation to pitch that idea. Obviously, there'd be some legalities involved as far as revenue sharing and generation and taxes and all that things that people don't want to budge on, because I know the city struggles financially in some places. So maybe that's something we need to do, because I don't disagree with Chris 100% that city park right there with the parking and being able to walk to I Love New York Pizza, Tacos and Margaritas, it's a pretty good hike. But if you're really thirsty after a good pickleball game, it's a good place to go and sit, right? So it's not, I'm just speaking the reality of it.
That's pickleball is a drinking sport. I learned something new the first time.
1.4 million times 2% is $28,000 when it's paid for hotel rooms for all-star teams.
Tell who teaches economics at the high school again.
Yeah, I ain't got anybody multiplier, I can put it in another.
What about basketball? Is there any more need for basketball courts than what's here? Like, is it?
Yeah,
Don't say that in
How
front of
much?
Brian.
I just-
Brian will ask for 2 more quarters, so.
If we had 2 more courts, we'd be set up for the next 10 years.
That, and I want to.
I'm not saying we can afford it anyway.
No, well, I want to hit on that too. That's one thing I would like to be sure of. This community center is awesome. It's great. And the county dumped money into it, and we got 2 big gyms out here, and we need 2 more, and we got nowhere to put them. Anything we do out here, that's something we need to keep in our back pocket is future expansion. That's, you know, I like what Brian and Seth are saying about the maintenance facility and, excuse my Appalachian dialect, over yonder. That back away, got room to widen if we need to, you know, add another leg to it if we ever need to. This thing got that big. Parking is a big deal, and it's going to continue to be a big deal. I'm going to go off some wisdom here, without experience. T-ball down there, we're running games, three games a night on the nights that we have those games.
Yeah.
If you show up, if my game's at 5:30, and I get here at 5:15, I find a parking spot. But then the game right behind me, their game's at 6:30. If they get here, reasonable time, 6:15, 6:20, I'm surprised we haven't had called the sheriff out here to lock people up for fine. It's terrible.
I just started the Boys and Girls Club and get 6:30 game walk.
Yeah, and that's about what you have to do.
That's.
And I'm not sure how far off the property line
It
is.
goes all the way to the gas line. I mean,
That whole mode area.
So, along with, and I've got numbers, I mean, I got Kurt giving numbers, to redo the parking lot in the back, it's $40,000.
With tar and gravel.
So while we're doing the shop, get him to completely redo, reshape, reconfigure, and also stripe
Thank you.
that back parking lot to make it more functional.
Yeah, we don't need any more freehand parking.
So that's a part of it. That's a part of doing that because we know it needs to be done.
So can we fit that in? So let's just use an average number. We talked numbers before on the new maintenance facility. Do we have kind of a ballpark for that? What it would cost?
Well, I mean, the tar and gravel is the $40,000 number.
That's
To come back and stripe on top of it, usually, I mean, it would be $3,000 or $4,000 to stripe.
I don't know. And I had,
But then if you want to asphalt pave it, you're gonna take that number and quadruple it.
no, the tar and gravel's enough, and I just had, I had our plant striped by a local guy down here that I worked for 20 years ago, and it was $1,300 to do 3 parking lots.
We got 50.
And I know a guy that if you have a stop ahead that you need to paint that on the road, we'll send you a number. They've got a new stencil that works really well. They actually spell stop. It's pretty neat.
So to get back to Josh's original question, yeah, we do need more gyms. What I would like to see from y'all is possibly rekindling our relationship with the school system to allow us to be in their gyms. It was very contentious when this building was built in relation to us being able to use their gym space. Our relationship with the school system now is awesome. You know, working with Adam, working with the high school coaches, working with football coaches, getting us access when we need it to those gyms would be huge.
Would the junior high be optional just since you can just go under the tunnel and get there, or does it need to be the high school to have?
It doesn't need to be the high school. It could be the
Martin
junior.
high school has
we
two
played in
gyms.
the elementary school.
Yeah.
Elementary.
Yeah,
So-
the middle school.
But one thing you gotta keep in mind is that, I mean, we have parents yelling at us because we had a game at City Park. If we're having games on the west side and games at Tate, you know, you're going to get, parents are going to be upset because they have multiple kids in leagues and they're going to be bouncing back and forth to Pickens County. We can
Harmony
move,
Harmony's the closest one, they have a really nice gym.
but if we could partner with Harmony or say the junior high, that opens up and that closes all the issues we have with space. But that's gonna be the Board of Commissioners sitting down with the school system and working through the issues we had back years ago with us using their space.
Well, I think junior high and high school, because they have their organized sports that go in the afternoons and the evenings, but the elementary schools don't. The elementary
middle
schools are not, Jasper Middle School doesn't have an organized, so I think it's just a matter of trying to find out how do we,
Well, I'll tell you where there's one gym that's not in use. Now, it's sort of.
it is, and it's not. It's got all of the police academy stuff where they have for all their obstacle courses, because I tried this last year, Brian, that's the first place he called me to see if I could get us in.
I wanted tennis courts and the basketball gym and the soccer complex.
Yeah.
That's the one.
That was one of the first, when we started opening up the soccer facility down there on the old football fields. We were trying to figure out how do we get access where we can use that gymnasium, and the police academy, the Georgia Public Safety Training Center had all their gear set up at the time, and that was what kept us out of there at that particular time. I haven't followed up to see if that's still the case or not, but I can definitely help with that.
Could you take those tennis courts and turn them into football courts?
Chris, you want to speak on that, about the DOT? Going through there possibly?
Yeah, if you ever look at what GDOT has for the plans when they split the road and where the road's going to split and where it's going to come back in, right at those tennis courts, the road completely changes. So whatever we invest into that particular piece of property could potentially not be of any value at all in 3 years with where those courts are and kind of the back part where the maintenance part is. They haven't fully committed to a start date yet. I think this thing's now been 20 years.
Like, are they gonna take up eminent domain, those tennis
They're
courts?
gonna destroy that.
Josh had spoke his feelings to the Department of Transportation for sure, and I mean, I've talked to them, and it's, the progress ran a story on showing the maps, and I think they had a couple public hearings after the fact when things were done, but where they're gonna split, the road.
You just put no left turn.
All one way through on 53,
Just
one
no
way
left
through
turn,
behind
it's
the
not the
Methodist
whole
Church
block.
and the split.
I know it would. No left hand turn on Main Street, you put a right hand turn in front of the Walgreens.
If you have, he's gonna be fine, we'll never get him back.
Found us so close.
This Friday's gonna take him going out that fast.
Adam, it's been 20 years. Seriously, 20 years.
It started 20 years ago, this really has.
Them talking about doing that.
I would say, I don't know.
That's why we've not really pressed hard with the school about trying to do more down there, because we've got the soccer field, on the football field. That tennis court would be a perfect pickleball location. You would have probably 12
Market, I
courts.
think the biggest thing, you can bring like food trucks in there.
Well, we brought in all the gravel to the pit to expand their parking so that they could move for all the soccer parents to park in there just to get them off the court, but now they just park in both. They fill up the courts and then they park in the gravel. So, obviously, if you put the fence all the way back up around it, it would. But we had checked with Southeast with Carrie Poole and her company. I never did get the final number on trying to get a resurface.
I mean, basically, we're gonna take it back, we're all the way down to the dirt, because they said it was so uneven.
It's got to be ground out and then level back up.
It's a complete redo, plus fencing, plus lights, plus we need access to bathrooms. Right there with the old man, bathrooms are there.
But that's all part of the lease that they currently have with the sheriff's office that's being used for their gym and workout facility for all their officers. So it would involve a lot of groups that are willing to work to shift stuff around.
I think that's the key, and that's, what happened on earlier. We need a general consensus among, on like what we're doing right here. We're getting to you guys get with us, we got with the community. All those city officials, they're elected by the same people, elected you guys. There's got to be a general consensus on that. And I think that's really how we, due to the funds that we don't have, we just don't, we can't afford to buy the land and build it, but we can't we gotta be able to work something out to get the land, and even then, building it is gonna cost. And just, and you guys, you know, we've talked about a lot of these things several times, and y'all can tell me to shut up and go home. It sounds to me what I feel like our priorities would be, in order to build revenue, do something flashy, and take care of our needs. The maintenance facility, to get that stuff out of there. Tear that thing down, put us up some decent bathrooms, if we can put it there. And then, you know, probably know some pickleball court somewhere. And then we reevaluate, see where we're at.
And I like the idea of that in field 2 and 3. in
Yeah,
there. 'Cause I think to get field 2 and 3 fixed up gives you the ability to do more.
Well, if we're gonna grade, septic shouldn't be an issue. If we're gonna grade and fix fields, septic shouldn't be an issue.
Because then you can go ahead and run your drain fields, because you're
Yeah.
gonna grade anyway, so you're
Well,
gonna
I
be
don't
tearing it
know,
out.
I don't just right into it out, I would talk about like.
Well, I mean, realistically, the outfields, like I said, I think to fix the drainage issues to where, you know, we talk about rain on open day, and if we elevate those fields 6 inches above the surrounding area around it, that water goes down there. It's gonna shed off there if we pitch it right and grade it correctly, clay on the infields, water sheds off the field, go out there with some jet dry and some blowers, and, you know, we might be able to salvage, if we have a rain the day before, we might be able to salvage over there. Might be able to salvage some gas.
If you go through, I would put windscreen, polycarbonate on the fence. I mean, you don't want to spend that money on replacing that
And
fence.
we've got to do more with the screen for the.
A couple $1,000 on windscreen would hide a lot of stuff.
That's one thing I have seen at these parks is a lot of nets, you know, the clover leaf thing, a lot of foul balls, but they've got nets stretching to the concession stand. But one of the biggest things I saw, one of the things that just looks terrible with our fencing backstops. You know, buy some mats and put them up there. That's-
Well, when I say fix those fields, I mean, fix those fields.
Yeah, so you do make those
Let's-
2 fields.
let's not
be
put wheels on it,
premier
not
fields,
paint the
but
car.
Then it can be everything.
Well, and what I'm going off of, Brad, is the fields that we play our tournaments.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest issues with our fields, that the outfields, they got some divots, because you got little Jimmy that's out there with a glove on his head.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, we come in and grade it, like I say, clay on the infields. The grass itself, man, if you want to go all out, yeah, bring some kind of turf specialist in, let him really get your grass right, but that's something you're gonna have to maintain. We'll have to maintain that. That will have to be in the budget every year, and it's not gonna be cheap, because we've got pine trees growing all over here, with Farmer John over there, and his horses knows what kind of hay he's throwing out there, and that stuff carries. So that's a cost. But I think that if we get those certain fields in good working order, and we have the restroom infrastructure, concession infrastructure, shaded area, then yeah, we could host some ball tournaments, and, you know, it may not be perfect game, may not be tournament ready, but RBI, PSA, some of the stuff that, you know, single A, double A ball, to be honest with you, there's more teams in those. More teams in those because they're less
It's a whole
expensive.
lot less expensive and a whole lot less paddling ball. I mean, you get to the higher level teams, you're gonna play in Missouri, Oklahoma, all over. So,
Yeah.
well, that's not what.
I'm not an elected official. I would just keep this in mind. I mean, I hate that's the baseball players, would love to have nice fields. Nobody votes for me. So,
We need numbers, real numbers
Yeah.
tied to it, and I totally
I
agree
think I
with you.
prioritize, and now we know, okay, this is where we go get the real numbers for these real projects, and how far off.
Yeah, and
how much
I'm
more
in
can
agreement
we
with
do
field
with
work.
this number. So I think that's good.
I think we can work practice schedules later on at some point to stay off of whatever we do. But I do think that pickleball courts do need to go up. I get it, you know, put up a no braking sign. But, that would benefit, I do know some guys that go and play in LJ through the week, they go and play at night. know, but we have that opportunity right there that we can do it with. We don't do anything. The only thing I ever see anybody out there with is they're running a dog, or there's some dude out there trying to knock a softball over that fence.
So are y'all thinking it would be worth losing field one, put the pickleball courts up versus putting them up by the basketball court where you don't have bathrooms? Is that?
But field one's not being used right now.
Yeah, I think taking that space and
practice for
yeah,
football and stuff.
yeah, no, and appropriating it correctly, I think that you can end up piling a whole bunch of stuff in one spot, and then we have that land to do other stuff with. Because you got an additional road that doesn't need to be there. We can expand parking long term. We don't get rid of the basketball court. We have a spot for a pool that we will eventually have to start some kind of layaway plan for, I'm sure. I don't know if Kmart still does that.
Kmart's got it going.
But it will give us an opportunity to do, like Adam said, we'll be able to do the things we need to do, update some things, and then give the pickleball courts something, just to show that in good faith that we're actually gaining traction and moving forward what our county wants.
And while the paper's here, we need to find the Roper family of the west side. Discuss land.
There's
They
a
will
bunch of
go
them out
there,
there.
we can write that up real nice, you know, so I'm sure there's some generous people on the west side of the county who care about the parks and rec.
As long as they still hunt.
Well, does anybody else have anything? Does anybody in the public have anything?
I know we've went for quite a while, but I just, before we close that part of it, I just want to say thank y'all. One, it was not just for this evening, but for serving on the board and doing what you've done. I mean, I can go back to when I was a kid, my dad was on the Parks and Rec board, and this was back when they were very heated, and there were some actual physical fights, I think, broke out in some of their meetings that he's told me about, going all the way back to when that was going on. But just your willingness to serve, to coach, to continue to pour in, I can't say thank you enough. I really can't. I don't know how else to describe that. And to be willing to come and share all this with us. Like I said, when we were in the town hall, there's no bad ideas. Everybody's passionate about their ideas, and I know that we've got different opinions from some on what to prioritize. But I think everybody's got the same best interest in mind, is how to make it better for our community, for kids, but also for the other members of the population too. So I'm just thankful for what y'all do very much.
So the next time we will meet will be on November 15th, 2023 at 6 p.m. here at the community center. Tyler, do you want to entertain a motion